Hello, and welcome to today's webinar on considerations for third-party reprocessing of single-use medical devices. My name is Paul Litley, and today I'll be discussing reprocessing of single-use devices from third-party firms. Let's get started. As background, the reuse of single-use devices, which have been safely reprocessed by third-party reprocessors, can enable healthcare facilities and providers to maintain a high quality of patient care while saving on costs and reducing medical waste. Reprocessing of single-use devices is not a new concept and has gained a significant momentum since the start of the reprocessing in the early 90s. Today, many large corporations have a branch or division specifically dedicated to the reprocessing of single-use medical devices. Validated functionality testing, paired with validated cleaning, disinfection, and/or sterilization processes ensure the safety and the compliance of regulatory requirements for the reuse of these devices. In today's presentation, you will learn what categorizes a single-use reprocessing device, what exactly does single-use reprocessing entail. You will also learn regulatory requirements surrounding single-use device reprocessing, as well as cleaning validation and test plans, function testing responsibilities, packaging validation, disinfection or sterilization considerations, and last but not least, biocompatibility expectations. This webinar training session is appropriate for design teams, quality assurance, and regulatory personnel, and anyone who is interested in learning more about single-use device reprocessing. The knowledge gained from this presentation will aid in the safe and effective reprocessing of single-use medical devices. So what is single-use device reprocessing? To start, let's identify a few key terms. When we talk about the use of the term single-use device, we're referring to a device that was intended for one use or on a single patient during a single procedure, and then that device is discarded. We use the term in this industry, original device, which refers to a new, unused single-use device. And finally, when we talk about the term reprocessed, we're referring to a single-use device, again, a device that has been used on a patient and then been subjected to additional processes and manufacturing for the purpose of obtaining additional single use of that device. The subsequent processing and manufacturing shall result in a device that is reprocessed within the means of this definition. In this presentation, we'll be focusing on these definitions and the processes involved in returning a used single-use device to its original condition for additional uses. In this next slide, several categories of single-use devices that are commonly reprocessed are outlined. This list includes non-invasive skin contacting devices, non-electrical invasive externally communicating devices, and electrical invasive externally communicating devices. Some examples of these devices are for non-invasive skin contacting devices such as pulmonary oximetry probes, compression sleeves, EKG and ECG leads, blood pressure cuffs, and pneumatic tourniquet cuffs. For the category of non-electrical invasive externally communicated devices, we're discussing bisectors, graspers, shavers, burrs, and classes of other non-electrical laparoscopic and arthroscopic devices. Categories of electrical invasive externally communicating devices include such devices as electrophysiological catheters and cauterizing devices. So you may be asking why? Why reprocess a used device? The industry has recognized that there are several advantages for third-party reprocessing of devices marketed for a single use, and the industry has gained significant momentum since the inception in the early 90s. And according to a study by the Commonwealth Fund, if hospitals nationwide adopted a single-use device reprocessing program, cost savings could be 500 million annually, all the way up to almost 3 billion over 5 years. One of the leading third-party word processing firms claims to divert more than 2.9 million pounds of medical waste from landfills each year. So reusing devices that have been safely reprocessed by a third-party reprocessor can enable healthcare providers to maintain a high-quality patient care while saving costs and reducing medical waste. Reprocessing and reusing single-use devices can save costs and reduce medical waste, but before medical devices can be reprocessed and reused, a third-party reprocessor must comply with the same requirements that apply to original equipment manufacturers or original device manufacturers, including submitting documentation for pre-market notification or approval as needed, registering reprocessing firms and listing all products, submitting adverse event reports, tracking devices whose failure could have serious outcomes, correcting or removing from the market unsafe devices, and meeting manufacturer and labeling requirements. The reprocessing cycle or model for single-use device reprocessing typically follows a cyclical path. In this model on the slide, devices are collected from the healthcare facility after use and transported to the reprocessing facility. The devices are then sorted, cleaned, and identified. Following cleaning, devices are reconditioned or refurbished and function tested to ensure proper operation. In certain cases, the device may receive a final clean and disinfection prior to packaging and labeling. After packaging, the device may be sterilized to another disinfection or sterilized process depending on the device classification requirements. And finally, redistributed or marketed to the healthcare facility. This cycle may repeat many times depending on the number of reprocessing cycles the device has been qualified for reuse. Reusing devices intended for single use without having the correct validated process in place may have a detrimental effect on patients' health. Regulatory requirements for third-party reprocessing mandate the development and validation of processes to refurbish the device to substantially equivalent or as compared to the original device. Because the device was designed for single use, reprocessing instructions have not been or are not developed and therefore require post-market development by the third-party entity. A validated function test is commonly paired with validated cleaning and disinfection or sterilization processes to ensure the safety and efficacy of the reprocessed device. The expectation is that the third-party reprocessing firm follow the life cycle of an original device, including packaging validation and biocompatibility testing. So again, to repeat, failing to have these validated processes in place may have harmful effects on the patient's procedural outcome, as well as expose the firm to regulatory impact. The US FDA considers third-party reprocessors as medical device manufacturers, and therefore reprocessors must comply with the Code of Federal Regulation, Part 820, the Quality System Regulation for medical devices. Furthermore, the FDA requires third-party reprocessors to register the operation as reprocessor of single-use device. If the firm is marketing outside the US, ISO 13485, which is the international standard for medical device quality management system, applies as well. Additional guidance documents and standards apply to third-party reprocessing firms as well. The FDA recommends using guidance from the Medical Device User Fee and Modernization Act of 2002, commonly referred to as MEDUFMA, along with enforcement priorities for single-use device reprocessing by third parties and hospitals. Because a single-use device is manufactured by an original manufacturer but typically reprocessed by a third party, additional labeling requirements are instilled. These requirements are found in labeling recommendations for single-use devices reprocessed by third parties in hospitals. Additional standards commonly used for third-party reprocessing are the technical information reports developed for reusable devices. TIR 12 and TIR 30 provide guidance for cleaning or reprocessing validation for reusable medical devices and can be applied to single-use device reprocessing as well. Even with these recommended standards and guidance, there still remains a lack of detailed regulatory guidance, requirements, and specifications for the reprocessing of single-use devices. Due to the somewhat unclear nature of how third-party reprocessing of single-use devices is regulated, it is best to take a risk-based approach to device reprocessing, including cleaning, disinfection, or sterilization, to ensure that the device is safe and effective for the next patient use. The risk-based approach should be developed in accordance with relevant standards such as ISO 14971, Risk Management of Medical Devices. Resources for currently reprocessed single-use devices are provided by the FDA. A variety of single-use devices are considered to be reprocessed safely and effectively. The FDA has compiled a list of single-use devices known to be reprocessed or considered for reprocessing by third-party entities. For a listing of these devices, refer to the FDA's website and search for single-use devices known to be reprocessed. A full list will be provided. As discussed earlier, reusing devices intended for single use without having the correctly validated process in place may have a detrimental effect on the patient's health. Considerations for reprocessing will typically follow a similar format to the manufacturing of the original device. These include product grouping, cleaning, refurbishing and function testing, packaging, and disinfection or sterilization, and finally, biocompatibility. As with any manufacturing process, product grouping and determination of a master product or worst case representative device from each group is recommended. This is recommended to reduce the amount of validation required. Similar devices can be grouped together as a family and tested as such. From each family, a worst case device or master product is commonly selected and documented with justification or rationale as to the worst case conditions. The master validation is then the master device, is then validated and represents the family in total. Cleaning, perhaps the most important of all of these processing steps, we talk about cleaning. The industry defines clean as visually free of soil and quantified as below specified levels of analytes. Cleaning is performed to remove contamination from an item to the extent necessary for further processing or for the intended use. This also includes to allow for successful subsequent sterilization steps, to limit to a minimum the organic soil transfer from one patient to another, and to prevent accumulation of residual soils, such as preventing the development of a biofilm after multiple cycles. Cleaning test plans. For successful cleaning, the firm should create a test plan and establish justifications, including acceptance criteria, to conform to regulatory trends using a risk-based approach. All single-use devices must undergo additional post-market validation regarding both reprocessing and functionality. Again, as single-use devices do not come with reprocessing instructions, cleaning and sterilization process must be developed and validated by the third-party reprocessor to ensure patient safety. These test plans should be documented in the protocol and can include risk analysis, test method rationale with acceptance criteria, justification of a sample plan, and test result interpretation. Every reprocessed device should be evaluated for cleanliness. One of the first steps taken when considering which processes are necessary for reprocessing a device is to assess the level of patient contact and determine the residual soil characterization. Questions such as how is the device used on the patient and how much organic soil or bodily fluid comes into contact with the devices should be asked. Answers to these questions will determine the level of cleaning the device will need. For example, a device that has only incidental contact with the patient might require only spot cleaning, perhaps with a spray cleaner. Devices that have more contact with the patient's secretion may need to be fully immersed in a detergent bath or undergo ultrasonic soak or require manual brushing to clean. Other factors to be considered include the appropriate cleaning procedure and the justification of the acceptance criteria. These factors will form the basis for the cleaning validation, along with the validated parameters. It is important to clarify the difference between a device that is clean and a device that is disinfected or sterile. A device that is clean is free of organic soils and detergents. On a device that is disinfected, viable microorganisms have been reduced or eliminated. A device that is sterile has undergone a process in which viable microorganisms with resistance below a spore-forming organism have been eliminated. Visual inspection should be part of both routine cleaning and cleaning validation. The majority of reprocessing cleaning process steps are water-based, and therefore is of significant importance to determine the appropriate quality of water to be used for the cleaning process. Water is considered the universal solvent because over time, water will dissolve most anything to which it is exposed. Because of this, water, even from a municipal source, will contain a significant amount of impurities. When selecting water quality for a given process, consider that the level of acceptable impurities is determined by the potential of that impurity to impact the product, the process, or the patient health. This understanding and potential impact of impurities is crucial in water system design, validation, and process controls. A valuable reference regarding the use of water in reprocessing of medical device is Technical Information Report, TIR 34, with the most current revision published in 2014. Reprocessed single-use devices must remain substantially equivalent to the performance of the original device. As discussed, the original device specifications are typically not available from the third-party reprocessor, for the third-party reprocessor to develop design files and accurate functional testing. Therefore, specifications for physical, mechanical, and electrical attributes must be reverse engineered and developed through baseline testing. These newly developed specifications must be verified and justified to ensure the single-use device can be adequately reprocessed to a level that confirms the device performs as intended. Furthermore, original equipment manufacturer, original device manufacturer design changes need to be identified and accounted for in a timely manner to maintain the adequacy of reprocessing design specifications and associated function testing for the reprocessed device. Packaging of reprocessed medical devices will need to be considered as well. Standard packaging design and validation should be conducted on every device type and/or product family. It is not uncommon for a third-party entity to follow packaging configurations previously developed by the original manufacturer. If sterile, the packaging design and validation will need to be conducted in accordance with relevant standards such as ISO 11607 for considerations given to transportation and shelf life studies. Sterilization and disinfection processes and associated research should be conducted to understand how the device was initially marketed by the OEM, as well as how it is used in the hospital or clinical setting. Due to the exposure in a hospital setting, devices may run the risk of being contaminated with organisms associated with healthcare-acquired infections. It's not uncommon for a device that is marketed originally as non-sterile to receive high-level disinfection or even sterilization when being reprocessed by a third party to eliminate the possibility of transmission of these infectious organisms. Sterilization or the degree of disinfection should be part of the risk management system and be based on the substantial equivalence or based on the risk potential of microbiological contamination. Disinfection and sterilization processes and validation should be conducted in accordance with relevant standards. A biological safety evaluation of the reprocessed single-use device is required as well. Biocompatibility assessments evaluate potential biological responses based on material of construction and processes related to the medical device. If the device is exposed to a cleaning process, special considerations should be given to detergent residuals or potential interactions between the device's material and cleaning solvents. It is a reprocessor's responsibility to test the device for any reprocessing aspects which would potentially impact the device's biological safety. In summary, the motivating factor driving the demand for third-party reprocessing of single-use devices is a desire to provide safe and effective care that is also economical, ultimately benefiting the patient. Furthermore, the amount of medical waste sent to landfill can be reduced significantly through reprocessing activities. Paramount to these efforts is validated function testing, cleaning processes, and disinfection or sterilization processes. Establishing substantial equivalence of the reprocessed single-use device to the original device design status demonstrates the finished device is safe and effective for use. This concludes today's discussion, considerations for third-party reprocessing of single-use medical devices. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you found it enjoyable as well as educational. If you have further questions or comments, please feel free to contact me through email or phone via the contact information provided. Thank you.